So there's been a whole lot of hoopla around the now infamous Dragon Prince build. Oakley's videos on the topic got a lot of views and a lot of discussion going. And I love heavy cavalry builds, I always have. There is nothing more satisfying in Total War than crushing a pinned block of infantry with a rear charge and watching them melt away. And of course the Knights of Caledor are one of the most visually stunning units in the game as well, so I wanted to try them out. In terms of stats here, we've got plus 8 melee attack and plus 12 melee defense with martial mastery. We're looking at 44 melee attack, 42 melee defense, 110 armor, and 80 charge bonus with 25% physical resistance at a price of 1400 gold. That is a really beefy stat line. It can be very tough to get these guys down below half HP. Once you do, obviously they're going to take a big hit in the stat department, but that 80 charge bonus is so powerful, you're not necessarily going to notice it. Their DPS is very, very strong when you're able to get clean charges off, even when they've been worn down over the course of a battle. Teclis is also really important for this build. His spells like Chain Lightning provide some much needed killing power for dealing with halberd units that would typically counter your cav, and as we know, Net of Ammontok is just amazing for controlling the flow of engagement. We've got a decent front line that can pin the enemy in place while the cav does the killing, and we have 2 archers for shooting down single entity monsters or helping to even out that infantry fight. This army comp can of course be countered pretty heavily. A focus on halberds or even a Net of Ammontok on the other side of the field can give you fits, but it's probably the most entertaining and rewarding build I've used on Warhammer 2 thus far, for obvious reasons. Once Mortal Empires drops, you're going to want to keep your Caledorians away from Demigryphs and Blood Knights and Grail Knights, but against infantry-focused builds, Dragon Prince cores can be amazing, which is why I'm busting it out against the Dark Elves for this battle. Silverhelms are not an amazing cav unit by any means, but they fit the theme we're going for here and round out the rest of my cavalry force pretty nicely. If you get them into silver or gold chevrons, they will still cost less than Dragon Princes, but have significantly more melee defense, while sacrificing on the armor, physical resistance, and charge bonus in particular, but they'll still put the hurt on any unit we get a rear charge on, which is the entire point. We're going to be going for those hammer and animals in this one. White Lions and Spearmen making up the front lines, 3 Dragon Princes, 1 Silverhelm, and Teclis, High Lore Master of Hoeth, are my build for this one, with the 2 archers to shoot down those big monsters that try to get into the middle of my army. Now let's take a look at the build for the Druki. He's got 2 shades in the front with their armor-piercing repeater crossbows, Black Ark Corsairs as the mainline infantry with a Death Hag mounted on an Altar of Cain, Cauldron of Blood as support. Harganeth Executioners, I don't have a lot of answers for them except for my cavalry, so they could be a real big issue for me in terms of this infantry engagement. There's a Dreadlord on the field as well, Cold One Knights on the flanks, and a Reaper Bolt Thrower unleashing its armor-piercing range firepower from afar. So I'm just going to go right in with the infantry engagement right now. White Lions up the center, charging into the Black Ark Corsairs. Should trade well off of the charge, except for that Death Hag, who is going to be a bit of an issue right now. And I am going to drop a net. This was not a good net at all from me. I wanted to prevent the Harganeth Executioners from reaching the front lines for as long as possible, which is definitely a good idea, because my infantry doesn't have a lot of answers to them. I need support from the cav, and I wanted to prevent the shades from running away so I could murder them with my own cavalry, but the problem is I completely ignored the Cold One Knights here, and I'm not going to be able to deny their charge bonus downhill, which is going to make this cav fight a lot harder than it needed to be. A good usage of net there would have just been to use it on the Cold One Knights, prevent their charge bonus, and get a big charge off them. You can see the Dragon Prince of Caledor do a ton of damage off the charge. I am winning that trade, but it's much worse for me than it should have been otherwise. But I do have a big opening here for the Dragon Princes of Caledor to just smash into the back of the Black Ark Corsairs that were already engaged in melee, and I'm going to quickly pull out of there. Now, ideally, you want to leave your Dragon Princes in there for maybe 5-10 seconds to get that full charge bonus off and really allow your melee attack to get multiplied by that charge bonus. Not able to there because the Harganeth Executioners came in to reinforce, and their armor piercing would be really bad for my Dragon Princes tied down. But you can see how much damage I've already done to the main line, and the archers are ripping up the Altar of Cain. Now, some of my Dragon Princes did get caught out as the Executioners overlapped and prevented their escape, so I'll take some big damage there for sure, but the Dread Spears and Black Ark Corsairs are already routing, and my White Lions are in pretty good shape. My Blunder with a net will cost me a full unit of Dragon Princes though, as they're surrounded and ripped apart by the Cold Ones, so that was a big mistake on my part. But Fiery Convocation from the sickly Pimp Teclis, backhanding some unsuspecting shades, teaching them who's boss. That was a pretty good cast, did a lot of HP damage, maybe not a lot of kills though. The initial engagement shows the power of a hammer and anvil from the Dragon Princes of Caledor. Only took a couple of seconds to spring that assault and land a devastating strike that routed the main line. And with the Silver Helms bearing down the hillside for a beautiful frontal charge into the Altari, it looks like things are going super well for me, right? That I've got all things wrapped up. Well, not really. Murderous Prowess pops, and that is the point of this ability. It can either function as a I'm kicking ass, let's kick even more ass ability that furthers your lead, or as a comeback mechanic. And full strength Cold Ones and Executioners with Murderous Prowess and Murderous Mastery can pretty quickly turn a fight upside down. So things are not gonna go easy for me. Taking down those Hargoneth Executioners will be very tough. They're gonna slaughter my White Lions and Spears in the middle. And now I gotta focus on the mobility for the Dark Elves. I've gotta get those Cold Ones off the field, so my Silver Helms will get committed as they're murdering the Shades. They'll have to deal with Cold Ones that have Murderous Prowess. Probably not gonna go very well there. And Malekith, not a Dreadlord, I said he was a Dreadlord. That is Malekith on a Cold One, will be anchoring the line here and basically tank a whole lot of my infantry as a couple White Lions get sent flying by the tail of that massive Cold One. The Hargoneth Executioners are slaughtering everything now. I don't have a lot to deal with them at the moment because the Dragon Princes of Caledor are tied down. So this is where Teclis spells really come in. Chain Lightning, dropping down. I just need to do as much HP damage as possible. And that Chain Lightning wasn't amazing, but you can see even though my main line has started to rout a bit, Chain Lightning did do the damage there that was required to get them low for the Dragon Princes to come in and finish them off. So with that rear charge there, that should be enough to break those Hargoneth Executioners and allow me to win the infantry fight once and for all. Cold Ones are coming in though. They've been microed pretty well this game, and that will be typically a pretty cost-effective trade for the Dark Elves, right? Armor piercing and bonus versus large charging in from the flank do not make for very happy Elven Princes, and the rampaging Cold Ones making their presence felt absolutely. Malekith just taking out all that damage, surrounded by Azure Spearmen and the Dragon Princes, even Shades getting committed into melee desperately now as the Dragon Princes, remnants of one unit, charge downhill. Epic shot of the Reaper Bolt Thrower is getting some big armor-piercing shots in, but they're not using the correct one in target cav. They should be using the single target bolts, while the big cluster shot is used for infantry. Hargoneth Executioners finally routed, some Cold Ones routing as well, and nets for the Dread Spears. Full unit that was protecting the Reaper Bolt Throwers in the back from the cav. Hold on, little Juki, we're going in dry. Big fiery convocation ripping through. That was a lot of damage. Big cast from Teclis there with the bound spell. That was fun. Good stuff. And now the Dragon Princes and the Azure Spearmen are dealing with the remnants of the Dark Elf line. It'll be up to Malekith. There's not a whole lot of his army left at this point. But to be honest, there aren't a lot of Azure left on the field either. Dread Spears will make it into melee. Silver Helms and Dragon Princes together working on running down the Reaper Bolt Thrower, which has been firing the entire game. Generally speaking, don't want to let that happen at all. Artillery, if it let to shoot for a long time, even the kind of less powerful units like the Reaper Bolt Throwers, they can still do a lot of damage to you if you let them shoot. Now, one thing I have noticed with this build in particular, a lot of times the opponent will completely ignore your archers because there's not a lot of gold invested in them, only like 900 gold overall. But they're an amazing asset to this army, right? They're amazing for taking out single targets, like the Altar of Cain that I slaughtered early on. My opponent completely ignored it, ignored the archers, and got punished very heavily for not taking out the archers. And pretty much any monster that's on the field, you can very quickly whittle down the HP if you're able to pin it down either with a net or basically just tie it down with infantry and shoot it to death. With 2 archers, you can do a lot of damage there. So I kind of like that. If you invest in like 4 or 5 different archer units, then people are going to be like, wow, I got to take out those archers. They'll do way too much damage to me. But with only 2, it becomes a little bit less like, maybe I can ignore those. No, you can't. You cannot afford to ignore the archers in the back, or they will punish you. But you're not in a necessarily horrible spot if you do end up losing them early on, because again, you didn't invest a whole lot in that archer component in the first place. So Malekith, surrounded by the Dragon Princes and White Lions, will go down here. Well, he'll rout rather, and that'll be your game. So I have used this build a lot over the last 2 weeks or so. I think I tried it only like a day after Oakley showed that video of him against the number 2 ranked player, and I've probably played about 15 or so games with it. Been very successful, really enjoyed the build, and if you haven't already seen Oakley's video or tried out the build at all, I definitely recommend you go do it, because if you're like me, and you like really heavy cav builds, and you like heavy cavalry in general, it's very rewarding to get 3 Dragon Princes working in tandem with each other, working with the nets, working with the mobility you have, and coming in from all different sides, and just smashing units from behind. You don't even have to rock with the net. It's fun to use the net, but if you feel like it's too OP or whatever, just don't use it, skip it. You can get great cab engagements out on the flank, just with support from a Xur Spearman to block the charge of an enemy cab or something. Typically speaking, you're going to want to avoid the armor-piercing bonus for large cavalry, because they'll trade cost-effectively with you, and instead use it to murder infantry. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. See you next time. Any Pride signing out for now.